and welcome back to another exciting episode of CUNY Uncut, where we talk about anything and everything, uncensored, unedited, and uncut. I'm your host, Isabel Ortiz, and today I am joined by another incredible guest. He is currently a student at the CUNY School of Law, gearing up to take the bar exam. With that being said, I would love to give a warm welcome to my guest, Dylan James. Hi, Dylan. Welcome to CUNY Uncut. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am so happy to have you on the show today because I feel like this season I've really enjoyed highlighting stories of students and recent alumni who, let's say, their college journey wasn't exactly the norm. They had a unique experience. Because I feel like a lot of people, it's the same formula. Graduate high school, you spread your wings, you go off to college. So I really wanted to ask you, how has your experience really deviated from that norm? Because I wondered about your senior year experience. What was that like?
So my senior year, pretty much everything about my education has been like unconventional. So I'm formally incarcerated, and my senior year, I only made it to about Christmas break. I got arrested, and eventually I was locked up for 3 years. But prior to that, I had some trouble with grades and things like that. So I didn't make it very long in high school. I think all in total, I was only in high school for maybe about a year and a half.
Okay.
I homeschooled myself my 11th grade year, and because I pretty much failed my 10th grade year. So my 11th grade year, I did all of my 10th grade, 11th grade, and the majority of my 12th grade coursework. So my senior year, while I was there, I had like 3 art classes, like a cooking class.
Okay.
Yeah, like 2 different gym classes, and I think like English.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay.
So there wasn't much there.
Okay. Because I wanted really to ask you, what was your experience like? What was your relationship to the educational system? Because, like you said, you homeschooled yourself. Did you feel like in school you were set up for success, or were there any letdowns?
No, I can't say that I was. I can't say I was set up for success really at all. I think, looking back, I would probably frame it as I was probably maybe a difficult student, a challenging student. I've always had like a real inquisitive personality, so I don't typically just accept things at face value.
Okay.
So like
You're always asking why.
oh yeah, that was like it's still to this day. It's probably, if there was a way to like tally it, I probably use that word more than any other word. Like,
Okay.
I got to know why. So like the teacher's giving their lecture, and I truly don't mean anything by it. I just want to go a little deeper. So it's this happened because of X Y Z, and I'm just like why? Like, what's the further context? And, I was engaged. Getting older, I guess you realize, it's just a 9 to 5 to, some people teaching is a passion, but some people it's just a job, and they don't want to come in and have to, work extra all day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because you mentioned being a difficult student, but do you feel like that was just what you were seen as, or can you accept that that's what it was, or were you just being a kid?
I don't personally see myself as a difficult student at all. I was always like really well read. When I did apply myself, I usually aced tests and things like that. I think the root of it for me was I didn't particularly feel all that challenged academically.
Okay.
And, that's frustrating. And then, because I am a kid, hyperactive or whatever, I channel those energies into something else. So, like, if I'm, reading at this level and we're still doing Cat in the Hat, I'm like, I ain't gonna mince words. I'm like, this is boring. You know what I mean? Like, I want
Yeah.
I've been covered that.
Yeah. Too, I feel like the school system, it's the same thing like I mentioned before, like the formula high school graduation, like high school straight to graduation. It's the same thing in school. There's a formula for how they teach kids, but any kid attitude, any question like why is out of that formula. It is an outlier, so that it gets ignored. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean they want you they teach subservience, right? They don't really teach like critical thinking or innovative ways of doing things. You know, they just want you to neatly be able to plug and play into a system.
Yeah.
I'm not really just not really a systems person.
Okay.
It just doesn't fit me.
That makes complete sense. It doesn't fit a lot of people, and you hear a
Exactly.
lot of stories
Exactly.
like that. You mentioned homeschooling yourself, and then in your senior year you were incarcerated. So how did your education continue while you were incarcerated? What was that like?
So like it was actually, it's hard to look back on that now, but I don't know when I first got in there if like education was like one of the primary things in my mind, but I kind of feel like it was, because I think it kind of just hit me like the minute I got locked up, it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I have to get it together. Like you know, I knew I was probably facing some time, and you know, I hoped I wasn't, but I was like, I have to get it together. I saw that they had well, before that, I'm like, you know, don't people, you know, get like college courses in jail or something? You know, you see that on TV.
Yeah.
They didn't have that in Florida where I'm from, but they had a GED program. So I saw flyers for that, and I saw announcements for that being made, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna do that. So I signed up for that. I think it was like within the first couple of months that I was there. I went there. I went to the first class. I didn't really feel like going to any other classes.
It wasn't for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was, you know, the same kind of thing. It was like real like rudimentary stuff. And I showed up, took the test, passed it, got my GED, and I was like, well, you know, I knocked that out. So
Well, I think that speaks a lot to the fact that you didn't go to the class. You attended one class and you passed the GED.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
I think that speaks a lot to. It's not that you didn't have the brain for it. It's just the motivation and the surroundings. Would you say?
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I was definitely unmotivated. So I can't act like, you know, like the system was failing me or something. It was definitely I was an actor in this, and I wasn't that motivated.
Okay. So you get out of prison. What is your next step? What was the next step for you?
So literally, so this is something that, you know, I just, you know, had been ruminating on for a long time. I'm like, while I was in there, I'm like, I'm just going to course correct from this, like, as hard as possible. Like, I'm going to go to school. While I was in there, like, my mom was sending me, like, paralegal correspondence courses a little bit. I was doing things, did a lot of reading. So essentially was my college, but I was like, you know, that's not enough. Like, I want to get a degree.
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from. I really don't, because that wasn't really on my mind, you know, ever. Like, you know, the height of my aspirations was I was going to be the manager at Dollar Tree.
Wow. Okay.
That was going to be a real big deal for me.
Do you think that was because of your surroundings?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Like that's like I was working at Dollar Tree when I was in high school, and I was getting groomed for shift manager, and I'm like, wow, I'm gonna be making $30,000 a year here. I'm rich.
Yeah, especially when you're a kid and you
Yeah.
don't really know who you are yet.
Yeah.
And for that to be pushed on you, think, okay, this is
it.
I made it.
I
you
made
know?
it.
Until
Be a manager.
Yeah, until you get a little older. Nothing against
Yeah.
Dollar Tree, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
you realize there can potentially be more for you.
Definitely.
So speaking on this idea, your mom sent you paralegal work while you were inside. Did you always want to be an attorney? Like you go to law school now. Was that always, well, because you mentioned that you the aspirations you had were limited, but was that ever something on your mind? Like, were you watching shows or TV and being like, that could be cool?
Not even remotely. Like,
Okay.
so it was my grandma that, like, I don't know, she like prophesized it on me. She's like, you're going to be a writer or a lawyer. And I'm like, I got writer because that's what I was always really good at. But lawyer, I'm like,
Where'd you get that
I'm
from?
like, you know,
Uh-huh.
she's from the West Indies, so you know she's from a small island, and my parents didn't go to college, and I'm like, where you just like where did that come from? So I don't know if that she was correct in that observation, from a child, or maybe if it became some kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy or something, because I always had it in the back of my head. I always kind of partially took it as like a backhanded compliment because I was always so argumentative.
Okay.
Yeah, but that my grandma wouldn't view me that way. Like my mom would have, but you know what
Okay.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I really don't know. And then
Could you say she saw the potential? Like she took that argumentative but saw the positive
yeah,
in it.
yeah, and I don't know where. Like I never even met a lawyer or saw a lawyer till I was in jail, and then even after that, I don't know, maybe 7 more years till I seen another lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it was just.
Did you have a perception of what a lawyer would be or should be or
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, real stuffy, stiff, just probably extremely condescending, and just
Okay.
just yeah, ultimately what they are. But
Okay.
like yeah, yeah.
But you do want to become an attorney. Do you see yourself being that stuffy lawyer that you saw growing up?
No, because I don't think I'm even allowed to be, even if I wanted to, because even within the
Okay.
legal field, I'm still never like they don't think of me like I'm still not part of the boys club. So
Okay.
yeah, so even like even if I were to like adopt that kind of personality, I'd be playing myself because I would just be excluding my actual people.
Okay. You feel like you would be playing a part to fit in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's not. It's just a paper. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
it's not like it's like lawyers, calm down, man. Like they didn't stop making intelligence when they made you. Like it's like y'all don't have the monopoly on this.
That's a very interesting way to put it. I wonder though, being that you were incarcerated when you were young and in that senior year you're not who you're gonna be yet, and like your brain's not even fully developed yet. But I wonder, do you feel like you have been constantly held to that mistake that you made when you were young? And then how do you overcome that perception, or how do you navigate that?
1,000% held to that. I believe I'm going to be held to that probably for the rest of my life. As I've gotten older and more distance has been put on it, it's become in some regards maybe even I hate to say a positive, but maybe it helps fleshes me. It kind of fleshes me out as a person in totality. Like I'm somebody who did make a mistake. I did something wrong when I was younger, but I guess it speaks to maybe the power of change and growth. Like me and that person, if we were in the same room, we probably don't even look the same. Like I'm
Yeah.
like that's a whole different planet, whole different lifetime, whole different universe. Like
That it feels like that to you?
yeah, some like looking back, it's just like I can't get into that headspace anymore. Like I couldn't even tell you like I can't even tap into that.
Okay. Like, and it's funny how you can feel that way about yourself and you can make all this change, but outside people will still hold you to that, and I think that's extremely unfair. And I feel like for people who are formerly incarcerated, that is a common idea
Yeah.
or a feeling. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, and the irony about it is uh oftentimes like the people that are holding that against me, they know this version of me. Like you're just going by what I told you. Like you know this version of me, which is not that version of me. Like you're not. It's one thing if maybe it was people that knew you back then when you were a troublemaker or something, still that same perception still sticks. You know, but these are people who have met the law student. Like you're just you don't even know where the bias is even coming from. It's just you're projecting.
Has there been an experience where you've met somebody new, they didn't know that you were formerly incarcerated, and it comes out later on, and has their perception of you switched? Have you seen that happen?
I see it happen at the law school.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of the duality where it's a social justice law school, so everybody is outwardly on board with all kinds of progressive movements and things like that. But I think inwardly, I don't think so. There's fear and trepidation and all kinds of preconceived notions around what a person who's been systems impacted is. I mean, I guess it's human nature. You naturally just jump to the worst possible idea. But yeah, that does happen.
It sucks, and I'm sorry that happens, and it's very unfair. And I feel like too, with being a lawyer, being in law school, really, you do tons of reading from what I've seen on TV. You do tons of reading to lead up to this bar exam. But do you feel like with your experience of being formerly incarcerated, there is something valuable that comes with that because you know what the system is actually like? You've felt it personally. Do you feel like there's a valuable part of that when you do become an attorney to know what that system actually is like?
Yeah. So one of the big things that we really do put a premium on, at least at CUNY Law, is like lived experience. So like say for instance, if a person has had like housing instability or immigration concerns or things like that in their life, they usually go into like those fields. Like you'll go into housing or you'll go into immigration, because that's your experience. That's probably the incident that led you to wanting to become an attorney. So it's the same kind of concept for me. My introduction to the legal field was being incarcerated, and then had that never, it's ironic, right? Something like really bad, had that never have happened, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd probably for sure be a manager at Dollar Tree, and it's kind of weird how that works. But I think that lived experience is really important. Not to say that I am a legal genius or I bring something that every other law student can't bring in terms of like legal arguments or things like that. But I know the full weight of these consequences. I know what it's actually like, the laws and the precedents that are set in terms of like criminal law and things like that. I know what that looks like practically on a real level. Like it's not just, I didn't just read a book, and like I live this. And so I think that does add a lot of positives to the field.
Yeah, and it's because it's your story. You can speak on all of that. Bringing it back to when you get out of prison, what is it like to apply to college and then apply to law school when you do have that kind of record? Because I know when I was applying to school, there's always that box. Have you formerly been incarcerated at any point of your life, even if it was when you were a kid, What does it feel like to have to check that box, and what does that mean for when you were applying to school?
So the first thing I did when I got out, I looked for a job. I had a hard time with that, so I'm like, I'm going to apply to school. And I did. So the local community college, they accepted me without any questions. Honestly, I can't remember if they asked that question or not, but regardless of if they did or didn't, that was a total non-factor for them. But once it got to the university level, it became a much bigger deal, and it did bar me from a few schools. Okay. So I applied to a few schools, and I had the grades and all that, leaving community college once I was trying to go to university. And they directly told me that it was because of my background that they would not admit me. Yeah, it hurt. It definitely hurt.
Does that feel defeating? I'm sure, because you're like trying to change, and then they're slapping you in the face with it, kind of.
Yes, it did, but I guess honestly at that, by the time it from the time I got out to the time that I was in school in earnest, like that had been like closer to a decade. So I think it was about 7 years.
Okay.
So I had experienced that kind of defeat like pretty regularly. So apply for a job, apply for an apartment, apply for pretty much just anything. It's just probably going to get denied. Mm-hmm. So, I really have one or two options, and it's still, I mean, this is still going to happen. Even, I'm going to have a law degree in a few months. It'll still happen. And, I got one or two options. Either I figure it out or I just succumb to, defeat. Mm-hmm. And, I got things going on, so I gotta figure it out.
Okay. So I know when all of this is wrapped up, you are gearing up to take the bar exam. I know there's a certain question on the bar exam. I believe it's question number 26. Mm-hmm. And there has been a lot of controversy about it, especially in New York. What really is this question, and how can that affect you becoming an attorney?
Oh, so it's like this extreme, so it's like fines, tickets, criminal record. It's just an extremely overbroad question. So if I'm not mistaken, you've got to report convictions that were sealed. Okay. Just very, very deep. It's the problem with it is a further barrier on top of a profession that already has innumerable barriers.
Yeah.
I mean, law school is barricaded behind, like, I don't know, just a multitude of levels of just arbitrary nonsense.
Yeah, and not just your background, it's also the cost, I'm sure.
That's the first line of defense is like you've got to, you got to take the LSAT, the entrance exam, which is entirely predicated upon can you afford a high-priced tutor? Because nobody can just I guess you can if you're like a genius, just pull up, take it, and pass.
Yeah.
Like you need a tutor because it's not like most of it is not a natural way of thinking. Mm-hmm. It's something that you have to frame your brain specifically just for this test. Uh-huh. Like I promise you never see it again in law school. And I haven't gotten to the field yet, but I'm pretty sure you never see it again there.
Okay.
So it's entirely just for that. That's expensive. Law school in general is expensive. You can't really work your first year. So, I mean, you can a little bit your second and third year. So you got all those expenses.
Yeah.
You've got to forego, income. Those are all barriers. And then, so what it ultimately factors into is you're already barring a population that is probably already barred. So it's like, a person like me, lower socioeconomic standing, like I just went on a whim and did it. I'm like, this is not really a sound idea for me, but you know what? It's either this or I work in a warehouse for the rest of my life. Okay. So I'm just I threw a Hail Mary, but
okay.
But that's that's who's being barred by the cost, mm-hmm. And then when you factor in. More likely than not, it's probably, again, people of lower socioeconomic class that are probably disproportionately affected by the criminal legal system. Yeah. We like to criminalize poverty in this country. So then on top of being poor, if you do have a record, no matter how long ago that was or what it may have been for, that mm-hmm. stigma is on you. That's a further barricade from the legal field. I mean, it's a lot. Like, they've pretty much got it designed.
Gotta jump through hoops to
tons, like flaming hoops, yeah. They've got it designed so only like a specific, yeah. person, and it reflects in the makeup of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure because I'm sure it looks and it probably is predominantly white.
Oh, I think the number is. Don't quote me because this is I'm not in front of a computer, but I believe the number is like 86
Okay, wow.
percent. Yeah, something crazy like that.
That sounds right. I'll double check, but
Yeah.
that sounds right.
Yeah.
But being that you are gearing up to take the bar exam, and I know it's tons of studying, what is your end goal? What do you hope to do after you successfully pass the bar?
So there's like all kinds of things that I hope to do. The first thing, I started a nonprofit. I plan on seeing that through. I'm just really passionate about a lot of things. You know, just fixing the criminal legal system. I believe that it is not right. I'm passionate about financial literacy. I feel like a lot of folks don't realize the power that they have. Like, even though we're not in the best of times right now, we still can we still can make something work within ourselves. So I really just want to hammer those ideas. But yeah, right now, gotta pass the bar. That's a big one. I don't. So the funny thing about the bar is, thankfully, our school pays for bar prep, which would be another barrier.
That's great.
Because I promise, there's no way you're gonna pass the bar without bar prep. Like, I just wouldn't even know where one would begin.
Okay.
Like, trying to study that on their own.
Yeah, I'm sure. But being that this is CUNY Uncut, I like to ask everybody at the end of every show my final question, and being that you are gearing up to take the bar exam, I would love to ask you, what is your CUNY survival item, and what do you see yourself using moving forward as you prep for the bar?
Headphones.
Headphones, okay.
Yeah, headphones in combination with like Spotify or Apple Music or something.
But yeah, thank you so much for being on CUNY Uncut today to share your journey. I've really appreciated it, and I feel that a lot of people can learn more about it. And if they do have this idea of what people who are formerly incarcerated are, maybe this episode will change their minds a little. So I appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you so much. And if you are formerly incarcerated, do you. Don't let people stop you. It can be done.
Great. That is a wrap on today's episode of CUNY Uncut. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to check out CUNY Uncut on social media. And once again, I'm your host, Isabel Ortiz. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.